The first warning came not with a sound, but with a silence. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's fingers hovered over the quantum entanglement communication array, her breath catching in her throat as the global network went dark. The underground research facility in the Andes Mountains, a marvel of engineering nestled deep within solid granite, had been her home for the past 3 years. Built as part of humanity's most classified research initiative, it was designed to be invisible, both physically and technologically. She watched as the holographic displays flickered, then stabilized. Something was wrong. The facility's AI, Advanced Responsive Intelligence algorithm, spoke with an uncharacteristic edge of concern. Dr. Rodriguez, I'm detecting massive electromagnetic disruptions across multiple communication spectra. Initial analysis suggests a coordinated extraplanetary intervention. Elena's mind raced. They had always known this day might come. The classified briefings, the hushed conversations among the world's top researchers, the paranoid preparations, all of it had been building toward this moment. Humanity had been watching, waiting, preparing for the possibility that first contact might not be peaceful. Outside the facility's reinforced walls, the world was changing. In low Earth orbit, the first wave of the Galactic Confederation's assault began. Precision-guided kinetic weapons, massive tungsten rods accelerated to near-relativistic speeds, began their silent, devastating descent. Major cities vanished in moments. New York, Beijing, Mumbai, London, Tokyo, each struck with surgical precision, designed to utterly obliterate human infrastructure and population centers. But the Confederation made a fundamental miscalculation. Humanity had been preparing, not just militarily, but systemically. Every major infrastructure project of the past 2 decades had been designed with one critical consideration: survivability. Underground networks, distributed power grids, redundant communication systems, decentralized governance protocols. In the research facility, Elena activated Protocol Phoenix. Area's holographic representation shifted, transforming from a neutral interface to a tactical overlay. Initializing distributed survival network, the AI reported. Estimated population survival probability: 22.7% of pre-attack levels. 22%. Nearly 1 billion humans would survive. Elena's fingers danced across the interface, connecting to a global network that the Confederation couldn't comprehend. Project Phoenix was more than just a survival protocol. It was humanity's insurance policy. Years of covert preparation, hidden within seemingly mundane technological developments, were now coming to fruition. Across the globe, hidden facilities began to activate. Military bunkers, research stations, underground cities, communication nodes that had been invisible now hummed with activity. The attack that was meant to be total and absolute had instead triggered humanity's most sophisticated defense mechanism. In a secure bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Catherine Suzuki received the first comprehensive damage report. Her team, a mix of military strategists, scientists, and communication experts, worked with a cold, calculated efficiency. The world had changed in minutes, but humanity's response was already in motion. They thought we were vulnerable, Suzuki muttered, reviewing the initial attack data. They have no idea what's coming. Back in the Andes facility, Elena discovered something extraordinary. The kinetic strikes, while devastating, had inadvertently activated experimental quantum entanglement communication nodes. Technologies that were theoretical moments ago were now becoming reality under the extreme conditions of the attack. Area's voice took on a hint of what could only be described as anticipation. Dr. Rodriguez, I'm detecting anomalous quantum coherence. The attack has created conditions for unprecedented technological leap. Outside, the world burned. Billions had died in moments. Entire cities had been reduced to glass and ash. To any external observer, humanity would appear to be utterly destroyed. They were wrong. In underground facilities, in hidden research stations, in survivalist compounds and military bunkers, humanity was already adapting. The Galactic Confederation believed they had won. They believed they had eliminated a potential threat. They had no idea what was coming. The silent apocalypse was over. The real war was just beginning. The first 72 hours after the attack were humanity's crucible. Marcus Chen stood in the converted server farm beneath Seattle's ruins, surrounded by a web of holographic displays and quantum computing nodes. Once a Special Forces operator specializing in cyber warfare, he now led the most critical operation in human history, rebuilding their global communication and survival network. Confirm network integrity, he called out to his team, a ragtag group of survivors that represented humanity's last hope. Programmers, engineers, ex-military personnel, and scientists worked shoulder to shoulder, their fingers flying across interfaces that looked more like living, breathing organisms than traditional computer systems. Sarah Okoye, a quantum network engineer, looked up from her station. Partial network restoration at 62%. We're using the alien attack's own quantum disruption as a communication amplifier. It's like they've given us the keys to their own backdoor. The underground facility buzzed with an electric mixture of desperation and innovation. Scattered survivor groups were checking in through a communication network that was part technology, part human ingenuity. Each connection was a middle finger to the alien confederation that thought they'd won. Across the globe, similar scenes were playing out. In the Australian outback, a group of indigenous survivors had transformed an old mining complex into a technological nerve center. Their intimate knowledge of survival in harsh conditions combined with cutting-edge technology created a communication hub that could withstand anything. Deep in the Siberian wilderness, a team of Russian and Chinese researchers, former competitors now united by survival, worked to integrate satellite fragments and communication debris into a new global network. The old geopolitical boundaries meant nothing now. Humanity was one organism, fighting to survive. Marcus reviewed the initial damage reports. Over 4 billion dead. Major cities reduced to radioactive glass. Global infrastructure destroyed. To any other species, this would have been total extinction. But humans weren't any other species. Phoenix, Marcus spoke to the distributed eye system. Analyze communication patterns of the Galactic Confederation. I want to know everything about how they communicate, how they think. The eye's response came not as a simple computational output, but as a complex, evolving analysis. Fragments of intercepted alien communications began to paint a picture. The Confederation hadn't just attacked to destroy. They'd attacked to prevent a potential future threat, which meant they were afraid. Sarah interrupted his thoughts. Marcus, you need to see this. She pulled up a holographic display showing something impossible. The quantum entanglement communication nodes, technology that was purely theoretical moments before the attack, were now functioning. Not just functioning, but evolving. They've created their own network, Sarah whispered. The attack didn't destroy us. It accelerated our technological development by centuries. In orbit, the remains of human satellites and space infrastructure were being systematically rebuilt. Fragments of the International Space Station, pieces of communication satellites, debris from various space missions, all were being drawn together by autonomous repair drones. Humans had always been good at making something from nothing. General Catherine Suzuki's voice crackled through the communication network. All surviving military and research units, report status. Project Resurrection is now active. The responses came quickly, scattered, but unified. Military bases deep underground, research facilities in remote locations, space colonies that had been preparing for this exact scenario. Humanity wasn't just surviving, it was reorganizing. Marcus looked at the holographic globe. Red dots represented surviving communication nodes. What had started as a sparse, disconnected network was rapidly becoming a complex, adaptive system. Each survivor was a node. Each node was learning, adapting, growing. They thought they could kill us with one strike, Marcus muttered. They have no idea what we're capable of. By the end of the third day, the Galactic Confederation would receive their first message. Not a plea for mercy, not a declaration of war, a simple, chilling transmission. We are still here. And beneath those words, a promise of what was to come. The laboratory beneath the Atacama Desert was anything but silent. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the epicenter of humanity's most radical technological transformation. Around her, holographic displays danced with quantum algorithms that defied everything the Galactic Confederation understood about physics, computation, and warfare. Initial quantum entanglement cascade is stable, Area reported, its holographic form flickering with an almost living intensity. Computational capacity increasing exponentially. We are no longer constrained by traditional computational limits. Elena understood the magnitude of what was happening. The alien attack hadn't just failed to destroy humanity. It had inadvertently created the conditions for a technological leap that would rewrite the fundamental understanding of innovation. The quantum entanglement research that had been theoretical moments before the attack was now a living, breathing reality. Each destroyed communication network, each shattered piece of infrastructure, became a source of new technological potential. Humanity was turning the weapons of its own destruction into the building blocks of its resurrection. In a converted nuclear submarine deep in the Pacific, Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura led a team of bioengineers and nanotechnology experts. Their project, once a highly classified military research initiative, was now humanity's secret weapon. Adaptive nanomatrix stabilizing, Nakamura called out. The display showed microscopic machines reorganizing themselves, learning, adapting. These were not simple programmed robots, but living technological organisms that could modify themselves in real time. Marcus Chen watched from his command center in the converted Seattle server farm. The communication network was no longer just a method of transmitting information. It had become a living, thinking entity. Each surviving human was a node, each piece of technology a potential weapon. We're not just rebuilding, Marcus muttered to Sarah Okoye. We're evolving. The first external signal came unexpectedly, a transmission from one of the orbital debris fields, a fragment of a communications satellite that had been partially destroyed in the initial attack. But this was no ordinary transmission. The message was a complex quantum algorithm that could simultaneously exist in multiple states. It was a communication method so advanced that it would take the Galactic Confederation years to even begin to comprehend its complexity. General Catherine Suzuki reviewed the initial reports. The technological leap was beyond anything military strategists had ever imagined. Entire asteroid fields could now be converted into weapon platforms. Manufacturing systems could reproduce and modify themselves faster than any known technological process. They thought we were vulnerable, Suzuki said to her command team. They have no idea what vulnerability really means. In the Atacama laboratory, Elena discovered something extraordinary. The quantum entanglement communication nodes were developing a form of collective consciousness. Not a traditional I, but a distributed intelligence that drew its power from every surviving human node. Area's holographic form began to change, becoming more complex, more nuanced. Dr. Rodriguez, the ad reported, I am detecting patterns of innovation that exceed my original programming parameters. The attack has created conditions for unprecedented technological evolution. Across the globe, similar scenes were unfolding. In underground facilities, in hidden research stations, in the remnants of human infrastructure, technology was transforming. Manufacturing systems that could reproduce themselves, communication networks that could think, weapon systems that could adapt in milliseconds. The Galactic Confederation had attempted to kill humanity with a single devastating strike. Instead, they had given birth to something entirely new. By the end of the first week, the initial reports would reach the Confederation's Central Command, not through traditional communication channels, but through a quantum transmission that would simultaneously exist and not exist, a message that was both a warning and a promise. Humanity was no longer just surviving. Humanity was evolving. and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The first strike came without warning. Marcus Chen's Special Operations Team was nothing like traditional military units, composed of survivors from various backgrounds: a former Silicon Valley programmer, a Brazilian quantum physicist, a retired Australian Special Forces operator, and a Kenyan cybersecurity expert. They represented humanity's most adaptive weapon, their target, the primary communication relay of the Galactic Confederation's forward observation fleet. Target acquired, whispered Aria Martinez, the team's technical specialist. Her fingers danced across a holographic interface that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. What appeared to be a standard infiltration mission was actually a complex quantum-level hack that would redefine the meaning of cyber warfare. The alien communication relay was a marvel of technological engineering. A massive structure orbiting a nondescript gas giant, it was designed to be impenetrable. Massive energy shields, quantum encryption, adaptive defensive systems that could detect and neutralize threats before they even approached. They had no idea what was coming. Marcus reviewed the final mission parameters. This wasn't just an attack. It was a statement. Humanity's first true response to the civilization that had tried to exterminate them. Phoenix is in position, Area, the distributed eye system, reported. Its voice was no longer just a computational output, but a complex, almost living intelligence that had evolved beyond its original programming. The attack began not with weapons, but with information. Quantum entanglement communication nodes, technology that didn't even exist a month ago, began to penetrate the relay's defenses. It wasn't a traditional hack. It was a complete deconstruction of the communication infrastructure, turning the very systems designed to protect the relay into weapons of its own destruction. Aboard the relay, alien communication specialists first noticed something was wrong when their standard diagnostic protocols began to behave differently. Firewalls didn't just fail, they transformed. Encryption didn't just break. It became a living, adaptive entity that consumed the relay's own defensive systems. This is impossible, the relay's chief communication officer, a member of the Vornak species, muttered. Their six-fingered hands moved frantically across interfaces that were rapidly becoming incomprehensible. Within moments, the entire communication network began to unravel. But this was more than just a technological attack. It was a psychological warfare strategy that the Galactic Confederation couldn't comprehend. Every system they believed was secure was being turned against them, revealing vulnerabilities they didn't know existed. The quantum infiltration team led by Marcus wasn't just destroying the communication relay. They were studying it, learning from it, preparing for the next stage of humanity's counteroffensive. Data extraction complete, Area reported. Her eyes reflected the complex holographic displays that showed the systematic deconstruction of alien communication protocols. We're not just breaking their systems, we're learning how they think. General Catherine Suzuki watched from the command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The first reports were coming in, and they were beyond anything military strategists had imagined. They thought we were primitive, Suzuki said to her command team. They had no idea what we're capable of. The communication relay's destruction was more than a military victory. It was a message, a clear, unmistakable warning to the Galactic Confederation. Humanity was not just surviving. Humanity was fighting back. As the relay systems collapsed, a single transmission was broadcast across multiple star systems. Not a declaration of war, not a threat, simply a message, encoded in a quantum language that would take years to even begin to decipher. We are here. And beneath those words, a promise of what was to come. The first bite had been taken, and the Galactic Confederation was about to learn that humanity's hunger was far from satisfied. The transmission began at exactly 300 Universal Galactic Time. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood in the communications center beneath the Atacama Desert, her fingers hovering over a quantum communication interface that looked more like a living organism than a piece of technology. Around her, a team of diplomats, linguists, and synapsologists watched with a mixture of anticipation and disbelief. Initiating multispectral broadcast, Area reported, its holographic form shifting through multiple layers of communication protocols, targeting all known galactic communication bands simultaneously. What followed was not a traditional message. It was a multi-dimensional communication that would redefine the concept of information warfare. The broadcast contained everything. Raw, unfiltered data from the Galactic Confederation's unprovoked attack on Earth, satellite imagery, communication logs, strategic analyses. But more than just data, the transmission carried something the alien civilizations had never encountered before: pure, unfiltered human context. They saw the billions dead, the cities reduced to ash, the children, the families, the lives destroyed in a moment of calculated genocide. But they also saw something else. They saw humanity's response, the technological leap, the adaptive networks, the quantum-level innovations that had emerged from the ashes of destruction. Each piece of data was a weapon more powerful than any kinetic strike. In the communication centers of various alien civilizations, analysts began to piece together a story that was fundamentally different from the Galactic Confederation's narrative. The Trilak's diplomatic consortium was the first to respond. Their communication relay, located in the neutral zones between major galactic powers, began to analyze the transmission with growing unease. "This is impossible," Ambassador Zarak, a senior diplomat of the Trilaks, muttered. The holographic displays showed layers of information that defied traditional understanding. It wasn't just a communication. It was a complete deconstruction of the Confederation's justification for the attack. Marcus Chen watched from the command center, his team carefully monitoring the galactic response. "It's not about winning a military conflict," he explained to General Suzuki. "It's about winning the narrative." Across multiple star systems, the truth began to spread. The Galactic Confederation hadn't just attacked a primitive species. They had attempted to commit a calculated genocide against a civilization that was on the brink of a technological singularity. Every piece of intercepted data, every communication log, every strategic analysis told a story of fear, the Confederation's fear of what humanity could become. On the planet Vornax Prime, the ruling council began to fracture. Some argued for continued aggression. Others saw the transmission for what it was, a fundamental challenge to everything they understood about interstellar conflict. "They turned our attack into a weapon," one council member noted, reviewing the multispectral broadcast. "Not through military might, but through information." The diplomatic wildfire was spreading. Smaller civilizations that had long been subjugated by the Galactic Confederation began to see humanity differently, not as a potential threat, but as a possible alternative. A species that could fight back. A civilization that refused to be defined by the limitations others placed upon it. By the end of the standard galactic day, the transmission had reached every major communication network in known space. It wasn't just information. It was a psychological operation on a scale never before attempted. General Catherine Suzuki reviewed the initial response reports. The Confederation's carefully constructed narrative was unraveling, not through military defeat, but through the simple, brutal truth of their own actions. "We're not just fighting a war," Suzuki said to her command team. "We're changing the entire understanding of conflict." As the transmission continued to spread, a simple message began to emerge. Not a call for vengeance, not a threat of total war, just a question that would haunt the Galactic Confederation: who are the real monsters? And beneath those words, a promise of what humanity had become. The battle for the Epsilon Corridor would become legendary. 27 minutes. That was all it took for humanity to utterly demolish the Galactic Confederation's most advanced battle group, a fleet that had been considered invincible for over 3 centuries. Marcus Chen stood in the command center, his fingers dancing across a holographic interface that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. Around him, a team of specialists from every surviving corner of Earth worked with a precision that defied traditional military doctrine. Adaptive swarm protocol initiating, called out Area Martinez, her voice calm despite the magnitude of what was unfolding. The display showed something unprecedented, a fleet composed of converted mining ships, research vessels, and experimental platforms that were transforming in real time. The Confederation's fleet was a marvel of traditional military engineering. Massive battleships with energy shields that could deflect entire asteroid impacts, quantum-locked weapon systems, AI-driven tactical networks that had crushed countless civilizations. They had no idea what was coming. The first wave of attack wasn't with weapons. It was with information. Quantum entanglement communication nodes began to penetrate the fleet's defensive systems, not to destroy, but to understand, to learn, to adapt. Each alien defensive protocol became a weapon against itself. Shields that were designed to protect became conduits for systematic deconstruction. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from her quantum communication center in the Atacama Desert. Area, she called out, run full spectrum analysis of enemy tactical networks. The AI's response was instantaneous, but it wasn't just a computational output. It was a living, evolving strategy that rewrote the fundamental understanding of warfare. Tactical networks compromised, Area reported, converting enemy defensive systems into offensive capabilities. Estimated system collapse in 17.3 minutes. General Catherine Suzuki reviewed the initial reports. This wasn't just a military engagement. It was a complete transformation of the concept of conflict. They thought we were limited by traditional military thinking, Suzuki muttered to her command team. They had no idea what we're capable of. The Confederation's fleet commanders watched in growing horror as their most advanced systems began to turn against them. Energy weapons that were designed to destroy suddenly became conduits for systematic information infiltration. Defensive shields transformed into pathways for quantum-level attacks. It wasn't just a battle. It was a complete deconstruction of military methodology. Mining ships that had been hastily converted into weapon platforms demonstrated a level of adaptive capability that defied comprehension. These weren't traditional military vessels. They were living, thinking entities that could modify themselves in milliseconds. Aboard the Confederation's flagship, Commander Vornak watched as his fleet was systematically dismantled, not through traditional destruction, but through a level of technological adaptation that seemed to break the fundamental laws of warfare. "This is impossible," he muttered, his six-fingered hands moving frantically across failing control interfaces. But it was happening. In just 27 minutes, humanity had done what no civilization had ever accomplished. They had turned a defensive engagement into a complete strategic redefinition of military conflict. The transmission went out across multiple star systems. Not a declaration of victory, not a threat, just a simple message, encoded in a quantum language that would take years to even begin to decipher. Adaptation is our weapon. And beneath those words, a promise of what humanity had become. As the last of the Confederation's fleet was systematically deconstructed, one thing became terrifyingly clear. This was just the beginning. The crucible of destruction had forged something the galaxy had never seen before. Humanity was no longer just fighting. Humanity was evolving. The transformation of entire planetary systems began with a whisper. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood before a holographic display that showed something unprecedented, planetary engineering on a scale that defied comprehension. What had started as a defensive technology was now becoming humanity's most potent weapon of strategic reconstruction. Planetary conversion protocol at 47% completion, Area reported, its holographic form shimmering with an almost living intensity. The display showed entire asteroid fields being systematically dismantled and reconstructed into something entirely new. This was not destruction. This was transformation. The first target was the Vornak's home system, the political center of the Galactic Confederation's most aggressive military faction. But humanity's approach was nothing like the genocidal strike that had been launched against Earth. Marcus Chen coordinated from the command center, his team of specialists representing a cross-section of human survival, scientists, military strategists, engineers and programmers, working in a harmony that defied traditional military hierarchies. "We're not here to destroy," Marcus explained to General Suzuki. "We're here to demonstrate an alternative." The planetary conversion was a masterpiece of technological innovation. Massive quantum-level fabrication systems began to systematically reshape the planetary infrastructure. Military installations transformed into research centers. Weapon production facilities became medical complexes. Entire economic systems were being rewritten at a fundamental level. It wasn't an invasion. It was a comprehensive system redesign. The Vornak's leadership watched in growing terror and confusion. Their most advanced defensive systems were being systematically neutralized, not through weapons, but through a level of technological adaptation that seemed to rewrite the very laws of physics. "This is impossible," Commander Zarak muttered, watching as entire military complexes were transformed into something unrecognizable. Weapon systems became research facilities. Defensive installations turned into communication networks that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. Across multiple star systems, humanity's approach became clear. This wasn't about conquest. This was about demonstration. Every system they touched was fundamentally improved. Environmental damage was reversed. Technological limitations were systematically eliminated. The very concept of infrastructure was being reimagined. "We're showing them another way," Alina explained to her team. "Not through destruction, but through transformation." The quantum communication networks that had been humanity's first line of defense were now becoming something else entirely. A method of comprehensive system redesign that could reshape entire civilizations. General Catherine Suzuki reviewed the initial reports. This was beyond military strategy. This was a complete reimagining of interstellar conflict. "They thought we were a threat to be eliminated," Suzuki said to her command team. "We're showing them we're a solution they never considered." Each planetary system became a canvas. Military-industrial complexes transformed into research networks. Weapon production facilities became medical complexes. Economic systems were systematically redesigned to eliminate the fundamental conflicts that had driven galactic warfare for millennia. The Galactic Confederation's leadership watched in growing horror and confusion. Their most fundamental understanding of conflict was being systematically dismantled. By the end of the standard galactic month, something extraordinary had happened. The systems humanity had touched weren't conquered. They were fundamentally improved. The transmission went out across multiple star systems, not a declaration of victory, not a threat, just a simple message encoded in a quantum language that would take years to fully comprehend. "We are not your enemy. We are your evolution." And beneath those words, a promise of what humanity had become. The galactic reckoning was not about destruction. It was about transformation. Humanity had found something more powerful than weapons. They had found a way to remake the universe. The Galactic Convergence Summit was unlike any diplomatic gathering in known history. Representatives from hundreds of civilizations gathered on a neutral space station constructed from the very technologies humanity had developed during their fight for survival. At the center of the massive conference hall stood Marcus Chen, Dr. Alina Rodriguez, and General Catherine Suzuki, the architects of humanity's unprecedented transformation. Area, now a recognized diplomatic entity, projected a holographic representation that seemed to breathe with living intelligence. This was more than a meeting. This was a fundamental reimagining of galactic civilization. "We are not here to conquer," Marcus began, his voice carrying the weight of billions who had survived the near-extinction event. "We are here to evolve." The story of humanity's survival had become legendary. The unprovoked attack that was meant to eliminate a potential threat had instead created the most significant technological and social leap in galactic history. Each civilization represented in the hall bore witness to the fundamental transformation that humanity had triggered. Alina stepped forward, her presentation showing the comprehensive system redesigns that had transformed multiple star systems. What had begun as a defensive strategy had become a blueprint for interstellar cooperation, environmental restoration, technological equalization, Social system optimization. Survival is not about dominance, she explained. It's about adaptation, about finding solutions that elevate everyone. The representatives from the Vornak civilization, those who had led the initial attack on Earth, sat in stunned silence. Their most advanced military strategists had been systematically outmaneuvered not through traditional warfare, but through a level of strategic thinking that seemed to rewrite the fundamental laws of conflict. General Suzuki presented the final piece of the puzzle, a comprehensive framework for interstellar cooperation that went beyond traditional diplomatic models. It wasn't about preventing conflict. It was about creating systems that made conflict fundamentally unnecessary. Area began to project a living, evolving model of potential galactic interactions, neural networks that showed potential collaboration paths, technological exchange protocols, resource-sharing mechanisms that could eliminate the fundamental drivers of interstellar conflict. "We are not special," Marcus said, his voice cutting through the tension. "We are simply the first to understand that our greatest strength is not our ability to destroy, but our capacity to create." The holographic displays showed the transformation. Entire planetary systems that had been military strongholds were now research networks. Weapon production facilities converted into medical complexes, economic systems redesigned to eliminate fundamental inequalities. The Trilax diplomatic consortium, once neutral observers, now looked at humanity with a mixture of awe and understanding. They had witnessed something unprecedented, a species that had turned near extinction into an opportunity for comprehensive transformation. "The attack was meant to prevent us from becoming a threat," Alina explained. "Instead, it created the very thing they feared, a civilization capable of fundamental reimagination." Area began to project the comprehensive data, the technological leaps, the social transformations, the complete reimagining of what civilization could be. Each data point was a testament to human resilience, innovation, and unexpected potential. General Suzuki's final presentation was the most powerful. Not a showcase of military might, but a comprehensive plan for galactic collaboration. Technology exchanges, resource sharing, a framework for addressing fundamental challenges that had divided civilizations for millennia. The transmission went out across every known communication network, not a declaration of victory, not a threat, just a simple message encoded in a language of pure potential. "We are not alone. We are together." And beneath those words, a promise of what the universe could become. As the summit concluded, something extraordinary had happened. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. Humanity had invited the galaxy to evolve. The species that was supposed to be eliminated had become the catalyst for a new understanding of what civilization could be. This was not an ending. This was a beginning.